Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with Kevin, international leadership coach, facilitator, and trainer, where we add value to people's lives, happening every week on eBiz Radio. You can catch the Lunchtime Series on all major podcast channels. And joining me today, we have an HR professional with 17 years experience in the global at a global multinational level. She's also the founder of Silu Business Partners, HR consulting and coaching. She's an Enneagram practitioner and Arbinger facilitator. And welcome to the show, Akhona Tota. How are you doing, Akhona?
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for the warm welcome. I'm great, and you?
Good. I'm just recovering from a cold. We know that
Yeah,
COVID
it's
is on
going
the
around,
rise, and
going around.
it's absolutely. So, Akhona, to kick it off today, why don't you give us some idea of your background, sort of where you come from, your experiences, and then maybe just preface what we're going to be talking about today. One of my favorite topics, actually. So,
Great. So yes, so first of all, I'm based in the lovely town of Gqeberha, in the Eastern Cape. My background, as you said, is in human resources. Has been an HR practitioner in various organizations, over 5 years in leadership positions. And then, of course, for some reason, the coaching bug bit me, and I drank the Kool-Aid, and so passionate about it. Together with that, I work with Arbinger, a management consulting organization, global management consulting organization. Arbinger Institute is into the mindset, and I think it's the emotional intelligence lens, really, but it really talks about the mindset. So it talks about outward mindset, and it's quite a phenomenal way of being in terms of your home and work environment, and it just helps us become better human beings. So yeah, that's the space I work in. Passionate about coaching, as I said, I love working with people one on one or in team settings, and really helping people, as coaching cliche is, maximize their potential. I think there's nothing exciting when people realize what they're able to do on their own with just the support of a coach.
absolutely. I've always had the sentiment that everybody should have a coach. I think everyone should have a life coach and a business coach and a career coach. Like they're there for a reason, and
If it
like an
works,
athlete has a coach. Like
if it works
everyone
for
needs a coach.
yeah, if it works for C-suite executives, imagine, I mean, how it can work for everybody else. Because I think the best leaders and the one that really quite make an impact in terms of people and the bottom line, they have really good coaches that have helped them become where they at. So yeah.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. So tell us, what are we going to be talking about today? Because it's I don't want to sort of set it up for. I want you to set it up for us because I know that you've set up your whole conversation here today. So what are we going to chat about?
So today we're going to chat about self-awareness, and it's a topic that one would either be quite familiar with or just have no clue at all. But it's such an important conversation, and I think when we talk about self-awareness, the first thing we think about is emotional intelligence. We think about Daniel Goleman's model of EQ and the fact that it starts with self awareness. So, we don't talk about self awareness in the context of personal effectiveness and in the context of really leadership. Yeah, so that's our conversation for today.
And I just want to reiterate for those who are thinking, yeah, we're just going to have another one of those conversations. Just to reiterate, the one of the beautiful descriptions that I found online was the self-awareness is the ability to focus on yourself and how your actions, thoughts, or emotions do or don't align with your internal standards. And I love the fact that if you consider it from an internal standards, a lot of people are not self-aware.
That's the biggest challenge, eh? A lot of people are on autopilot.
I'm reading Joe Navarro's "Be Exceptional," and one of the things he speaks about is how very unaware people are, even with their immediate surroundings. Right? He gives it a specific name, which sort of slips my mind right now, but it comes down to spatial awareness, right? Like the
That's
space that you take up just in your own environment. And he mentions like a small little thing where he says we don't even realize when we're walking down the escalator and we go and
Autopilot.
stand and we just stop right there, we don't consider there's probably 20 other people coming past me and I need to get out of the way, right? We go into that autopilot kind of
Pace and slow.
brain numbness, yes, and
Yeah.
we don't actually do anything about it, right?
I love that,
We don't
that
even
you're mentioning
realize.
that we don't realize. I mean, if I make maybe a practical example, I would, in one representation that was super that I saw. So let's take a glass or jar of water, fill it up with water, fill it up with a little bit of sand, and this is representing ourselves, right?
Yeah,
And what's happening. The water is really representing where we are and what's happening. And then, of course, the sand is some of these things that happen in our lives and what else or other roles we play. And to make it really quite exciting, add a little bit of different colors to that mix. And as you stir it, you cannot see anything visibly clear. There's no
yeah,
clarity because there's work, there's this, there's all these roles you play. And if you're operating from autopilot, all of that is kind of circling in this, this water and it's swelling all, and nobody can see and separate anything there, right? But the moment you take to pause, you stop the staring, you just
yeah,
see what's in front of you and just reflect on it. Then you're able to see much more clearer. Okay, where's the sand here? Yes, there's a little bit of the color. Yes, a little bit of this. What does it inform me? What might I be able to do here? So yeah, I think that for me is it's just a model that sticks, or a practical example that kind of sticks to say when we're autopilot, there's all of these things that's happening. We're not even clear about ourselves, our role, and how we influence them. As you say, how we get in our own way, but also the impact to relationships, our home relationships and our work relationships.
yeah. So, I mean, to preface this, so why this topic? What is self-awareness to you, and why did you want to have this conversation today?
So, Kevin, I work a lot in the coaching space. My niche is around leadership and also career. I've seen it's a lot of times where people get in their own way. Number one, when you talk about perhaps career, we talk about someone not being very, very aware of how they come across. People are making assumptions and decisions about them and how they come across, and they're not even
Mm.
aware. And they're getting in their own way, which limits their improvement, their career development, and it has all these other impacts. Never mind the home scenario. And then again in leadership, a lot of leaders, like there's so much expected from leaders, and they're expected to achieve a lot, bottom line culture, with people, and they're not even aware of themselves and how they show up. So it's quite an important topic. I mean, change begins with self knowledge. If you want to be able to sort of change your dynamics, work on different goals, change your habits, self awareness is so critical.
Change begins with self-knowledge. I'm gonna steal that from you because I think that is such a beautiful way and thought process to kind of attach to what self-awareness is, right? Because very often when we look at change, we want to look at it from an external perspective.
Other
Or those
person,
people,
yeah,
someone else needs to change. That's my relationship, my partner in my relationship needs to change, or my boss needs to change, or and we have this external sort of locus of control thing. I think like everything happening outside of us is going to be the
yes.
thing that makes it matter, but actually
And the
the whole
problem is
crux of the
always
matter,
them.
it's you need to flip it around and we need to look at ourselves. Absolutely, I love that.
Yeah, well, in Arbinger, there's a term called self-deception, and here this is where I am not aware that I'm contributing to the problem. Whatever the dynamic or situation, I'm so
Yes.
self-deceived about my role in it, and it all links this aspect of self-awareness because when you're self-aware, you are able then to sort of observe how you see others, but also how you are showing up, and you're able to sort
Ah,
of be able to manage that lens and that dynamic first of the self before you can then expect or invite change from another person or you influence their behavior or anything relating to that dynamic. So yeah, quite
do you
quite
do
quite
you do you think it's a South African thing, or do you think it's a human thing that we almost have a culture of wanting to protect ourselves first? We kind of it's
mm,
me against you kind of thought process. We kind of have this ingrained kind of thinking that it's us against
Yeah, it's
them kind
wired
of.
in our brain, yeah. It's wired in our brain. So I wouldn't say it's a South African thing versus whatever. I think it's us being human, and I think it's wired in our brain, right? That I think,
Yeah.
as we know, our brain is wired to protect us, keep us safe. So safety is very important to the brain, and also pleasure. So it plays under these two, and whenever there's a problem, it's not me, it's the other. So that it's about how we are wired, that when we first start to anticipate anything or start to look at anything, we always start with the external environment, because sometimes it's not always so nice to see that about yourself or analyze yourself. For other people, there might be some trauma sitting there. For other people, they might feel like, oh well, it's self-punishing to keep on looking at yourself. Others can think it's self-promoting to be too concerned about yourself. But the power that lies in that space of self-awareness is amazing. And of course, as I said, it's wired in our brain, and so we kind of have to take the brain through this approach. And once it recognizes what needs to change and what are these habits and this and all of this around it, it's able to help us. But first and foremost, it's like kick up a fuss. It's like, no, this ain't happening. So yeah, it's quite something that as I work with people, I found that the realization that it all starts with them, that they can be able
Yeah.
to change different things, that they can influence people. They can't change other people, but they can influence other people just about with the way they show up. And they're able to, might not be win-win scenario, but they
Yeah.
certainly not going to be going and inviting conflict upon themselves when they can manage that scenario. So self-awareness is so important. And I mean, as I said, Daniel Goleman came with this model, and it started with self-awareness of emotional intelligence. It starts with self-awareness, then self-management, and then managing the relationships. So it's such a profound concept. I always wish that people could be aware uh, of that starting point, and it would make their life so much easier and achieving their goals as well. So attainable.
Another thing that comes to mind as you're talking is, that's what I share when I do training is your brain is there to keep you safe and careful where you focus, because your brain is going to focus wherever you decide to focus, right?
Yes,
But one of the things that also come to mind and again speaks to self-awareness is your unconscious bias.
yes,
Like you and I have chatted about this too, and that in itself is also
that,
self-awareness, right? Because
that's
you need
so.
that self-awareness of, are you being biased in your decision making processes? Are you being biased in how you're promoting someone, or are you being biased purely based on the fact that you have a bias against someone unreasonably, right?
Mm,
And the thing about having your self-awareness, if we're not even aware of our own biases, then it just adds to another layer
yeah,
to
we'll get upset
to
when people say something about ourselves that's true. We'll get
yeah.
into defensive mechanisms about what we're hearing from the outside, and whereas we could be able to say, you know what, let me evaluate this. I wasn't aware. How am I showing up in relation to this? When you do that quick check-in of yourself to say, why am I feeling this way about this? Why is my disposition towards this way? What am I not seeing else about this situation? Right? That moment
Yeah.
opens up a lot of creativity and innovation. And that's sometimes, as you say, with the unconscious bias, that's all that is really needed, to just check in with yourself. Um, is the world the way I perceive it to be? And is it about me, or is it about the other and what I'm trying to create? So it's so important and so profound. I mean, a lot of HR practitioners are needed needed to create these diversity programs and work on all of these things. And it starts with that. It starts with the self, you know.
So, I mean, on that note, so what are the tools that people can gain some self-awareness? Because there's many that we could go over.
Yeah, yeah.
What are the ones that you want to share with us today?
It's obviously there's a lot here, as you say, but context is always key. It's always key, and I think most of them it would start with some personality assessment. right? Or personality test, because within our personality, it's about our behaviors, our actions, and really how we show up. So, for an example, I think you might be familiar with the DISC profile that a lot of coaches work with. It could
Yeah.
be, as I said, it depends on the context. What are we wanting to achieve? What do I want to achieve as a leader or as a person with self-awareness? And it could be the DISC profile, that helps you analyze yourself and see yourself. Because if I'm going to impact other people and I'm going to have an influence, I need to know how I come across. So that's the one. You could also have your Myers-Briggs assessments, personality assessments. Again,
Yeah.
it depends on the context. Why are you using it for? And then, of course, we've got the Enneagram, and it's a profound tool. I love it very much. Some
Yeah.
people would want to go superficial, and that's okay. But I love the fact that the Enneagram is so into the psychodynamic, because how I am today and how I show up today is influenced by my environment, where either I come from, whether it was the nurturing or it's nature. Somewhere along the line, how I am and how I show up as a leader is informed by my experiences. So the Enneagram is quite a profound tool that I work with. And when I work with people around it, they're so amazed with the feedback it gives them about themselves. I think the blind
Well,
spots are such a
yeah.
profound area where they like, oh my goodness, this is me.
Yeah. And also your core motivators, right? So that your three core
Motivation.
motivators of coming from a shameful place, coming from a fearful place, coming from an angus place. Like, what is that core motivator, and what is driving for you to respond or react in a certain way? And
Yeah,
once you
definitely.
know it and you recognize it, suddenly you're more empowered, because you go, "Ooh, I can see that this is my trigger. This is why I'm responding." And absolutely, it lends itself wonderfully and perfectly right into self-awareness, and
Mm,
why this is such a necessary conversation and
mm.
consideration to do. Yeah.
I love what you're saying about empower, because often people think that we give power away. I mean, you talk emotional intelligence. Oh, now I must act a certain way for other people's benefit. No, it's about empowering you, because that inner noise that goes on of those
Yes.
motivations, sometimes
Yes.
that's what's getting in the way, and you don't see that. So it really empowers you to really see yourself in such a profound manner, to be able to know, okay, this is how I am and how I show up. But the beauty is, I can change. If I want to, I can change.
Akhona, I'm so glad that you're saying this, because my mother, when I was a teenager, my mother said to me, "Kevin, always remember that if it's to be, it is up to me." And I was like, "Yeah, Ma, that just means I have to do it all. I've always got to do everything. I always make everything happen. Why do I always have to do it?" But doing what I now do today, exactly to your point, right? Self empowerment is having the self-awareness. And the moment you are self-aware, and you are immediately self-empowered, and what you do with that information is entirely your decision, right?
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
is up to me. If it's to be that I want to achieve greater things, if I want to have better relationship, if I want the next best promotion happening it is up to me to be able to
Up
step
to
it up. And
you.
that's why self-awareness really kicks into gear.
So
It's like,
important.
that's
It's
why
so
you're doing it.
important. It sits within your mindset, about how you are going to take yourself forward. And I love what you're saying, that it's up to you. It really is. It's up to
Yeah.
you. You can be the person that feels like, oh well, I don't have to do all of this, but then you're limiting your own growth and your own potential, with not wanting to delve into that space. There's so much emotional labor that goes with conflict, for an example, that when you're self-aware and realizing, you know what, I don't have to get into this. I can simply be able to observe the person acting a
Yes.
certain way, and in fact not even judge them, but feel empathy for them. So
Yeah.
it links so much to me, but then the relationship and the next person, because when I suddenly have so much self-awareness, all of this, as I said, I don't need to have all of the emotional labor that goes with maintaining conflicts and all of these challenges we see in organizations, where people are just not gelling and they're not getting along. And of course, what gets impacted in an organization? The bottom line. If the leader and the team are not aligned, the results are not going to show up. So it's this that you're also then able to have empathy for the next person, but you don't get there. You just simply like pause and like, okay, I'll observe this person from this lens and just have empathy for them, but I'm not going to be contributing to whatever is the negative outcome that might be out of this situation.
Yeah. So I mean, let's speak about those benefits, right? What benefits having the self-awareness? I mean, we've already touched on some of these, but from an individual to team to organization, what are the benefits of like an organization kind of going, okay, we need some kind of program where we are more self-aware, we are actually doing something about it, where we are learning about ourselves in a bigger way, and where do we start? Like where's the starting point for this?
Look, I think with the benefits, really, I think, as I said, the clarity of mind is just the first thing about it, right? To be so clear of what's happening in your space. Now, let's go back to the context of our leader, right? When they have clarity about themselves, they are able to see how they're getting in their own way and inviting some of the perhaps challenges that they might have of not being able to influence people. The benefit in that is that it allows them to have self-confidence, and also it works on the self-esteem, because leadership is such there's been so much scrutiny around leaders that often there's that internal space where leaders are just challenged so much. They won't admit it, but they challenge so much. And of course, if I lack self-confidence as a leader and my self-esteem is not in check, it's a challenging situation. Hey, I'm going to be reactive to so many things that I just need to just watch and observe and let be. And then also, when it comes to some of the benefits, I think it improved happiness levels, making us better human beings. And that is just a profound, because after you come away from whatever was the situation or you've been at work, when you sit with yourself, you are able to feel so much better in your own skin, because you're able to analyze what has happened, whatever the situation, but that confidence within yourself about how you've handled matters, you're always in check, because you're constantly self-analyzing to see, did I have a contributing impact on this? Oh, no. So I'm off the hook in terms of, so I can now help that person without any defense, without any guards pulling up. I can just allow feedback, especially feedback as a leader. The other benefit is around increased effectiveness. As you said, it's up to me. It is up to me. So if I see this and it's a limiting issue for me, once I have more self-awareness, I'm more able to see, how do I move out of this space?
Yeah.
So I think if we talk about benefits, we could narrate a lot of them, but it really, I think for me, it's about, number one, the self-confidence and the self-esteem. And as I said, the happiness in your own skin, and how you're able to relate to others. And then, of course, the effectiveness around being able, having that win attitude and that can-do attitude. It really comes as a benefit from self-awareness. And again, as I said, this is both in the home and the work environment, because sometimes we feel like we must have these personas, right? When I'm at work, I need to put on a mask. And then when I come out, that mask must fall away. That talks to sort of being inauthentic.
Yeah.
And people are more able to relate to us when we're authentic. They're more able to connect, and we're able to more influence them when we're authentic. And then again, I mean, this is what, when we, in the lens of the brain wiring, we're able to know that we are social beings that are wired for connection. And that when I'm self-aware, I'm able to then be mindful of my impact to another person. As you were saying earlier, I walk past the lift and there's other people that have passed. I see what's happening with them, I observe. It helps me be able to, be aware of what's happening around me. I see there's a impact happening in the organization, and I think about how could that, be impacting my team. And then as a leader, I'm able to say, okay, you know what, there's targets and there's this, but my team is in a certain space, because as we are self-aware, we are able to manage the situations that come at us. So yeah, it's really quite a profound, and I say it's an enlightening and an empowering space to be self-aware.
And also, what is, as you're speaking, it's like, you know, especially when you're dealing with people, one of the things that I always share with anyone that I, you know, in a coaching perspective or in a training perspective, is ask what questions, which you refer to now as, and not why questions. And the reason why is because when you ask people why questions, why they did this and this, and why, immediately your brain, it wants to elicit defense. You know, it wants to say, yeah, it wants to explain itself. But the moment you say, so what led you to make this decision? Or how did you come to this point? And how did you get to this situation that you're in? Or, you know, when you reframe and you're aware of using the right language, you know, again, it speaks to productivity. It speaks to team cohesiveness. You know, it speaks to you know, the morale of the team and feeling inclusive and psychologically safe. All of that just based on the fact that you're, as the leader, have more awareness and self-awareness in how you show up for the people you're working with. At the end of the day, they are all benefiting based on the fact that you're empowered as a self-awareness leader.
That's it. That personalization of issues is simply taken away, and the person is able to see that, okay, this is a space that I can, because I think with leaders, especially around leadership influence, if they want to attain that, people are going to be looking at them. People are going to be wanting to, you know, see how does this person approach me, and so it's so important to keep on checking in with yourself in the conversation, and am I labeling this person somehow? How am I making this person feel? How is this conversation? And not for anything, because we want a win-win outcome. So one could come and say, yeah, well, why should I care, right? How my team feels and how they show up, I just want result. Well, surprise, surprise, you're not gonna get those results.
Exactly, yeah, you're not.
You're gonna get that discretionary effort as well that comes from your people being connected.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, tell us, you mentioned something about the outward mindset. How does self-awareness fit into this body of work? What is the outward mindset?
Wow. So, yeah, self-awareness is so wired in the outward mindset. I will call it, or we call it, radical self-awareness in the Arbinger space. It's really radical self-awareness. Say, how do I see others? So when we talk about the outward mindset, we're talking about how do we see others and ourselves in relation to situations, right? Am I seeing the people that I work with as people who have needs, objectives, and challenges who matter, same as mine do? Or do I just put myself above them all of the time? I think that's a fundamental thing around how do I see others, right? And it's all about the context of, if I'm coming across a certain way, those people are going to react to me in a certain way also. And if my mindset is inward, I'm focused only on myself and my needs and my objectives. Nobody else matters.
Yeah.
If they do matter, it's either because I see them as an object. Imagine now, just maybe, Kevin, if you were to think about where someone treated you like an object or saw you as an object, how did you contribute to that environment?
Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
Don't. You close up.
Do.
You don't. Yeah. So the whole outward mindset is to then have an outward view of your stakeholders, which is your subordinates, your customers, any other people in your environment that your work impacts. It's about this collective results that we're wanting to attain. And it starts with how I see other people. What is the narrative I'm telling myself about others? And if I put myself above them, of course, I'm not going to be getting any type of cooperation from them. In fact, they'll keep on resisting me, right? So if we see people as objects, as I've mentioned, it's either we do it in three ways. We see people as objects as in a vehicle. I need you to get from point A to B. You guys make me look good. You better make me look good. You better deliver because I need to look good. It's often something that leaders would say. So I see them as a vehicle to get to where I want to get to. Or I see them as an obstacle. You in my way. And you know what? I'll do all I need to do to eliminate you. I'll push you under the bus if I need to because I need to get you an obstacle. Or the third way we see people as objects is we see them as irrelevant. I don't need to consult you. Who are you? Right? Now, imagine this in a context of change management, or imagine this in terms of just the organizational cultures. If we have leaders that have got the inward mindset of it's about me and it's about my needs and it's about my goals and my objectives, not the collective. Because again, one is going to say, yeah, what's wrong with me focusing on my objectives? Well, if you are doing your work in a way that gets in the way of another person that you are able to contribute with meaningfully, you're never going to see this result. You'll be the superstar, but then the organization is going to not be growing. So when we have an upward mindset, there's more accountability, there's more collaboration, there's more of a spirit of belonging, right? And I think this talks to diversity. Whereas if we are inward, there's silos, there's blame, there's inefficiency. If, for example, I had to work with you and deliver a project, we would take longer than needed because there's so many of these issues or these things that are in the way. But when we both have an outward mindset, we're constantly checking how is it that I could impact Kevin's work positively when I do my own objectives for the collective result. So it's quite a very, I think it's a different way of thinking about mindset, because people often say, is it a growth mindset? It's a growth mindset on steroids because it focuses on awareness, and then it focuses on you being good and also helping other people to be good because we want to achieve the same thing together. So it's really quite a way of being that sometimes it's hard to understand for people, especially when we're so used to blaming other people for challenges. But outward mindset says, I need to see how am I showing up with that person. So it's all, it depends. We call it radical self-awareness because it's really about really just checking in with myself and how am I inviting the same conflict I think I don't want? How am I contributing to the same problems that I think are not needed? Just by the way I show up. So can you see how self-awareness is so linked to that?
You know, as you're talking, you know, Akhona, Carl Jung speaks about perception is projection, and he also says that you're not so much perceiving the external world as you are projecting what you carry inside onto the world around you, right? And often, you know, just the examples you were using now, you know, when you, and this is what I'm finding also, you know, from leaders who are looking at their teams going, oh, I've got lazy, I've got a problem child, I've got, they label them to such a degree, and then you go, having the self-awareness, there must be a part of you that goes, if you're noticing so much bad in all of that, in all of these people that you're working with, part of what you're noticing is part of who you projecting out onto those people, right? Because you know, it goes hand in hand with that outward sort of brain focus as you're speaking. And it's like, instead of finding all the fault, instead of finding what's wrong with this, like how do I empower and enable to find what's right with these people and what's working and what's, you know, how do others then benefit from me being who I am, doing what I do? I think it's a fantastic sort of way of putting it together.
Yeah, how many times in your experience, Kevin, working with teams, where you come in because the leader has brought you into their space to say, there's a challenge, these people, please work with them. How many times have you, when you work with a team and then you suddenly get to understand what is going on? And then you realize leaders contributing to this.
Yeah.
But they're so out of touch with it. They're so self-deceived to say they need to change. They are the problem.
Mm.
And sometimes, depending on how vulnerable that leader is, they'll invite you to that space, especially because they've called you in to say, okay, help me then see how I'm showing up. I didn't realize this. And that becomes such an open and a brilliant thing to happen when it's opposed to a leader not wanting to even see that. No, 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 no. I didn't bring you to look at me or analyze me. I told you they're the problem. But people can only be influenced to change when they see us changing.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, it leads us to our last question here, because part of what we're talking about, how does a leader or individual apply or implement this? Do you have a sort of step method or a process that you can share with us to really get people like starting to wrap their brains about what radical self-awareness looks like?
so yeah, I think it's an acronym called SAM, that I'll just unpack a little bit, and it comes from the Arbinger Institute, one of the tools that work very much so in starting this journey, And SAM is the S stands for see others, right?
Yeah, that's yes.
I need to see them. I'll take an example of I used to have this challenge with shop stewards. I would get so frustrated and challenged by them getting in my way. But did I see that they are leaders of a constituents, of a membership, and they need to be seen as doing their role? So they're not necessarily trying to make my work difficult. But I wasn't seeing them as such. I just saw them as like, yeah, you guys are obstacles, or you're just irrelevant at times, right? So it starts with seeing others. See the person that you are perhaps as a leader not able to impact or influence, right? Are you really viewing them in the correct manner? Why is some of that projection, as you were saying, are you pushing into there? And how is it that you might be contributing to the scenario? Can you see how that starts with that self-awareness to say, yes, there's a challenge with this person, but let me start and understand how could they be seeing me? How is it that I'm showing up when it comes to them? So you see others. Then the A stands for you then adjust efforts that you are having. So you see that the way I've been carrying on with this person is just so not on. I wasn't aware. Now I'm aware. Now you start adjusting because again, what are we aiming for? We're aiming for a collective result. We're aiming for a collective win. Not I look good and you feel bad. It's more that win-win situation. So I start adjusting how I'm showing up. Am I ever going to be able to adjust if I'm not self-aware, if I don't check in to say, yes, 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 I tend to be a bit of a micromanager. I tend to come across this way. So I can see how this person is being impacted by this dynamic, So it all comes with that self-awareness of wanting to do something and growing and changing and transforming. So you adjust your efforts. So perhaps if we take that context of the employee, there's a certain way that I'm coming across that's inviting negativity and resistance. I start looking at that and I adjust the way I'm approaching this. So I'll put in some measures in place. It could be perhaps I understand that this person, before I start getting to context about work, I need to first understand them and ask them about how was the weekend, how was this, just a simple example around adjusting our efforts. And then over a period of time, you then measure the results to say, when I'd acted this way towards this person or before, the situation I had with this person was this way. Now you start measuring to say, when I've adjusted my efforts, how has been? What has been the result? You measure the result. Simple concept. Simple concept. You apply STEM to most situations. Even let's take the leader in their home environment now. All right? Because as I said, we don't have personas we put on at work and at home. We are the same person. We just want to put on this mask sometimes. So take that same methodology and apply it to a home context, right? Am I seeing this troublesome teenager as a person with needs and objectives and challenges that are just as important as mine?
And trying to grow and find themselves. And
Yes. And if I keep on pushing them down, what am I inviting them to do? Right? So when I see them, I start adjusting to say, okay, the way I'm showing up in this relationship is not on. It's not, going to be resulting in a positive relationship. You start adjusting what you are doing, and then you measure that. See how then the relationship. So it could be touchable in an organizational setting, and then in a home environment, it could be even just about an improved relationship. That's the value, and that's how powerful and transformational this is. And then lastly, Kevin, when I find people asking me a question to say, yeah, but why should I even do all of this effort? The question I ask them is that what price are you paying right now for remaining the same, for not doing all of this work? What price are you paying in either the work scenario in terms of you impacting your people or connecting with them? What price are you paying at home? And then the question becomes, is that the price that you're willing to pay? To invest in things not going right and keep on investing in things going wrong. And you know what? Reasonable people and progressive people are going to be like, no, of course not. I want my team to deliver. And I want my teenager, my child I want to have a good relationship with them. I want to be the best they can be. Okay, well, so yeah. How about some transformation?
exactly. Akhona, clearly you and I, we could sit and have another 2 hours conversation about this. But
Clearly.
if you want to get hold of Akhona, you can check it out. She's the founder of Silu Business Partners, HR consulting and coaching. Akhona is on LinkedIn and
Yes.
all the. Do you have a website, Akhona, that we can go
Yes,
check
I've
out?
got the website, www.silucoaching.co.za. And then in the social media pages, Instagram and on Facebook, Silu Business Partner page is there. So yeah, if you need to find anything or any information or even just want to follow to get impacted by what I post sometimes, you can follow those social media pages. So I have this engagement approach that on Mondays, it's about Monday motivation. I talk
Yes.
about, just the normal Monday motivation that an individual can be inspired by or a leader can share with a team. On Wednesdays, I focus on coaching specifically, that quote or that tool or whatever that might be, helpful to a person around coaching. And then on Fridays, I really focus on leadership. Don't ask me why Friday, but for me, I feel like leaders, after a whole week's work, they're able to analyze and think about what just happened. And then in the new week, try something different. So, yeah, if you want to follow me on those social media pages, you'll be able to see all of on the Mondays and the Wednesdays and the Fridays.
Fantastic. I love it. Guys, thank you so much. Akhona, that was such a treat. And, I go and listen to it again because the wonderful SAM module that you can apply to really just making a difference to your radical self-awareness. I absolutely love that. Akhona Tota, thank you so much for being here and thank you for spending some time with us. Please come back and spend some more time with us because that was absolutely fantastic. I'll chat to you soon and thanks for chatting.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Cheers for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.